I think the immeasurable part is the stuff that he's included in our salvation and grace, which is immense. It's phenomenal. And what Jesus is saying here, okay, so you give somebody something that you like. You know, how much grace is in that? Is that a demonstration of my immeasurable grace? Because I'm telling you something. In eternity, I'm going to be setting you guys up. I'm going to have all of creation to be able to look at you and say, look at my son. This is immeasurable grace. This guy was not only lost, he was not only down someplace. I raised him up, I lifted him up, I cleaned him up, I fed him, I washed him. Look at him. He loves people. He takes care of people. He's into peace. He laid down his life. Mahatma Gandhi. He laid down his life for my kingdom. Look at these people. And we're going to be like on a display. I don't know how this whole thing's going to work, but I know Paul had a revelation of what immeasurable grace looks like. And Jesus is saying to us, you know, when you do these things, when you just love those people that love you, anybody can do that. That's not a demonstration of immeasurable grace. The point being, this passage here has to do with immeasurable grace. It has to do with grace that only comes from beyond. It comes from God. We don't have it. We can't do it. You're not going to love your enemies. You're not going to do good without that grace. It's a grace that comes from God. That's a demonstration of my dad. And it's more than that, because the word that's used when he says that, you know, that you be the sons of God, this is a demonstration that you're growing up. You're not a little kid anymore. You're not a little brat anymore. You're growing up. And you're able to demonstrate the grace of your Father, which is immeasurable. And these are the situations. He just names 3. If you do these things, what kind of grace is that? What kind of a demonstration of that is of God, who takes people that hate him and he blesses them. He rains on the just and the unjust because they need it, because he loves them. We look at it and say, well, I could see why he rains on the just. They're just. We still fall back to a works mentality. But the people that hate him, that are persecuting and killing the church, he blesses them. We haven't come into that yet. We're still trying to figure out how to impose our kingdom on this earth, even though it doesn't work. It just doesn't. We know that. It's a grace that goes beyond, but it's what sons, the huios, it's identification of them. When you see a child of God operating in this way, you're looking at someone who has grown up and is looking like their dad, like we all say we want to. This is a really good barometer here. He talks about being kind. That word kind is a response to something that is unjust generally. But instead of responding in kind, we respond kindly. This goodness flows from our hearts, the goodness of God. It's the word that when it says love is kind, it means that random acts of kindness. That kid stole my scarf. I think I'll give him $20 to buy something, buy a nice pair of gloves that he's never owned. What are you, nuts? That doesn't even make any sense. And that's because God's kingdom is not of this world. Don't expect it to make sense to the way we think about things. But it is a demonstration of God who's blessed us with these eternal riches. Immense. He's merciful. It's different than the word we used last week with compassionate. It has to do with pity. I get kind of upset because there's a lot of situations that Jesus is saying, surely you can feel it in yourself. You feel pity for a person. I just feel so bad for him. I feel really bad. He says, surely you can feel bad for him. These are the kinds of things that he's talking about in here that he works his way down. I see basically at the end here, you know, in the past, a couple of weeks ago, it was like, well, what do you say? The law says stone this person for their failures and for their shortcomings and their sins. And we've got a ton of words. You use any one you want. The law says stone them. What do you say? We walked out of this room with the question, what do you say? What are we going to say in 2017 when we're given the opportunity? Last week we said, what kind of kings? We talked about a king who just forgave the debt. What are they going to do? I release them. I forgive them. I set them free so they can enter into a new life. What kind of a kings are we? Here, I see a couple of challenges that jump out at me, which is really letting go of the law and the systems that I always use, to letting go of those and getting hold of love and the Spirit of grace. That's one of the things he's called the Holy Spirit, is the Spirit of grace. That's challenging to me, in the space and the little gap in my response, to get a hold of the Spirit of grace. Not what I should and could do. I'm well versed at, because I've been doing it for 64 years. Let me see, where's that stone? We were talking last week. So a challenge to me is that, another challenge to me is that what Jesus is really describing, we need to use our mind, our hearts. It all has to be working together in our spirit to come out the other end. This internal person is a person of grace. I've got to come to the point where I decide I'm going to be a lover, not a lawyer. That's kind of like the bottom line. Am I a lawyer or am I a lover? What I mean by that is, am I going to revert to the law? These are the rules. You broke them. You're done. Or am I going to be a lover that says there's no help in the law for you? Bless God, there is in me. There's a Spirit of grace. Don't count on the law to save you, but the grace in me is now going to offer a representation of God who will not only save you, but fill you with his eternal riches and graces. And that's what's really behind what Jesus is talking about here. And I think that's the point. And I think I've made that point, so I think there's nothing more for me to say.